Hi, Ivy. How are you?
Hey, you see, I got on much more quickly tonight, eh?
Yep. I love it.
Can't now.
Great. Well, so I'm going to read your bio and then we'll get started. So, I know there's so much information and of course it always goes by. So I'll get us started right away. Uh,
Sure, go ahead.
he works with women recovering from addiction to become the most resilient version of their sober selves. She does this through her coaching programs, namely her 7-step signature, My Resilient Recovery, for those who want to take their sobriety to the next level. Whether you're fresh out of rehab or you've been around for a while, she has dedicated over 15 years of her career to the field of addiction treatment, working as a counselor, coach, supervisor, group facilitator, and clinical manager. She has experience in both the inpatient and outpatient environment. Ivy has worked in a variety of treatment facilities, including Edgewood Health Network, Canada's premier addiction treatment and mental health provider, and Chatsworth Pavilion, internationally known exclusive residential treatment center. She has also designed and delivered numerous programs and workshops on relapse prevention, identifying values and creating your vision, finding the career you love, improving communication skills and recovery. As a recovering woman herself with over 26 years of sobriety, Ivy believes you own the right to experience a deeply resilient recovery, whether you're struggling to gain traction or are stable and want something more. You have a natural creativity that is the foundation of your very being. You deserve the opportunity to reach your potential, to love yourself, to be joyful in your relationships, and to be fulfilled by the work and the career that you choose. Ivy's goal is to be there with you as a co-creator and co-navigator. With her help, you can find the best version of yourself and design the most resilient life ever. When Ivy is not working, you can find her singing, playing guitar, cooking, chalk painting, watching movies, meditating, or hanging out with family and friends. So, wow, you've
Woohoo.
through a lot of stuff.
Well, unfortunately, I don't get to do a lot of that stuff these days, but I'd like to do those things.
Yes. Well, that's excellent. And but there's always you always got to make time for that self care. So that's always a
Yes.
priority list.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your story? What got you interested in doing what you do now?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a kind of quick rundown of, what my story was like, what was like, what happened, and, what's going on with me today. So I come from a really, good, upper middle class family. I had everything that, a child could want in terms of material, education, clothing, travel, no want for that at all. I'm the oldest born female, which is important. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And, from the very beginning, I was always the responsible one, and I have a younger sibling who is also, a recovering person. And she had kind of a difficult childhood. And the message to me was, you're a big girl, you can handle yourself, while we take care of your sister. So I kind of had to grow up like really quickly. And I felt sort of at the age of 6 that my feelings, I didn't know this at the time, were not really acknowledged, while they were busy with her. Like I always talk about families like being a child's mobile over a crib. Do they still have those things where, you yank one piece and all the other pieces kind of yank with it? So when they were, taking care of her, I kind of got out of whack. And I just learned how to sort of stuff my feelings, be the good girl, the compliancy, the people pleaser, that part of the codependent part of my personality was already starting to take effect. And as far as addiction, probably my first addictions were food. Children don't have a lot of access to, so food, reading, I spent a lot of time in my room, I love to read and just, kind of behaving. And it was, I got this. That was basically my motto for my whole life. I had a lot of friends, I had no problem with friends. And high school was like fairly normal. It was the 70s. So there was, a little bit of pot. My addiction is a little different and everyone's is different. It kind of took off, a little bit later in my teens when I met this girl who I thought had everything. She had a fast car, she had access to drugs, and she knew boys. Like this for me was like, oh my God, I have arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from this like really good family. So this was the beginning of the secret life, which is a huge part of addiction. and even codependency is that you know that it's not healthy. You're not really conscious of it. So, I was, like I say, good girl by day, bad girl by night.
Mhm.
And I was going with her, and I remember something. I was thinking about this yesterday. I had never really shared this out loud, and I'm going to share it with the group. Is that I remember like consciously losing my virginity the night before I started university because it was like a badge of honor. Like I kind of got rid of that.
Mhm.
When I think about it now, or when I started doing work on myself, I was like, how sad is that I felt I disrespected myself so much, and I needed that. A lot of women use sex in place of love. The guy's paying attention to me. Is it? That is. He must like me, and I was so desperate, I guess, for love and attention. Yeah, a few people I'm sure can relate to that. That for me, sex was a way of getting, of being acknowledged and validated, and that went on for many, many years. So, to speed up, I was always tall. I got into bars, so I went to bars at night, with my girlfriends, and it wasn't until I guess my early 20s when I got introduced to cocaine, which was kind of escalated my addiction a lot because cocaine is just, I was cross addicted. I had to drink, I had to, use at the same time. And of course, I was looking for love in all the wrong places, hanging out with the wrong people. I was still, working for my father. I had gotten married, then I was divorced. I had a child at home. I was trying to juggle all these things. And of course, my split eventually that whole thing just kind of came crashing together. And, my life was kind of spiraling out of control. I had been separated, well, divorced actually. And my thinking, totally distorted thinking was, oh my God, now I can really have a good time. I had no idea. I was a fairly responsible mother. I never used in front of my daughter, but I wasn't present. I remember, reading your stories at night and reading the first page and the last page, and you go like, what do you mean? Where's the rest of the story here? And it was like that kind of thing. I was doing the minimal type of attention, but I wasn't really there for her. And, I was working for my dad at the time. I couldn't get fired if I tried. I was so enabled.
Mhm.
And, I could just see things were really, really not going well. And then one day, actually, I tried to get sober in 1991. I did try once, but I wasn't ready. They say that addict has to reach their bottom, and many people have many bottoms, and it's can be bottomless and until you say it's not, right? So I did try a year earlier in 1991 to get sober, and I went to Cocaine Anonymous because I thought I just had a coke problem. And I didn't understand it. It was weird. It was 12 steps. I didn't get the God thing. And I relapsed shortly thereafter. And I had the most miserable year imaginable because I had already had some introduction to 12 steps in recovery. And about a year later, I was reading this book about adult children, and there was such a sense of recognition. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And I had that epiphany. They talk about a spiritual awakening. I think that's when I had my spiritual awakening. I knew that I was unhappy. I knew that I couldn't go on. I knew I needed help, but I just, I was really, really, close to the surface, but it just wasn't there yet until it was like, oh my God, that's it. I'm going to, go out and just, have a last hurrah. Of course, the alcoholic.
Mhm.
Got to have one last time. And then I said, very pragmatically, I'm going to get sober, and that's really basically what I did is that I went back to this meeting that I had been to, and I just waited until they, gave out the newcomer chip. And I grabbed onto sobriety the way I did my, my addiction. And I took the cotton out of my ears and stuck it in my mouth and just started listening and became involved. At that time, you have to go back, 27 years almost, there were not a lot of options in terms of recovery as there are today. 12-step groups were obviously the most popular. I don't even think there was smart recovery, anything like that. There were minimal amounts of rehabs. And of course there was therapy. So I did grow up in the 12-step rooms, and really helped me a lot. There were a lot of rediscovery in the early years, of healing feelings, of learning how to have fun without substance. I didn't know how to have fun without drinking or drugging. We used to go bowling. It was like a kind of a time of innocence, because the program is focused on the newcomer. I was taken care of so much. And I remember when I took my first year cake, this guy came and he said, I missed the first game of the World Series for you.
Oh.
And I will never forget that, and, all the while, I have many gifts. I mean, the healing with family, I went back to school, I became a writer for a while, then I went back to graduate school. And that's when I got introduced to this program, into this field of addiction. Besides being a recovering person, just to do it professionally. During my stage, I got to work in a rehab, and it's like, okay, this is what I really, really, really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that, but my story doesn't end there. Like for a lot of addicts and alcoholics, yes, my life is great today, but because we're talking about codependency, what I had never paid attention to was the fact that while I was so busy helping other people, there was a part of me that I was not looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my love addiction and codependency. And they are love addicts and codependents. I mean, they're like first cousins.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because codependency now is considered an addiction. It's a relationship addiction. And I was sober from, drugs and alcohol. I didn't have a shopping, food, not so bad. Shopping, but I was not addressing that underlying thing. And that's what happens. If you do not look at those things, it's going to rear its head somewhere along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the kind of wonky relationships, just the normal jerks that I went out with that were, emotionally unavailable. When I was 22 years sober, I like to say I hit that bottom so badly. It was, I tell people that the pain that I suffered then was worse than when I stopped using, because I think that I was sober. I had nothing but my raw emotions to deal with, and the guilt of feeling, oh, how stupid could I be? I'm 22 years sober. Why didn't I see this coming? I'll give you quickly what happened is I got involved in a relationship with a guy 16 years my junior, who was an active crack addict. Well, he wasn't when I met him, but he relapsed, and I was going through a personal issue in my family, which I had really trouble dealing with. I couldn't help these people. And I think what I did was I transferred that need to help onto this guy. And it was like, okay, I'm going to fix you. You are going to be like amazing. You're going to hang out with me. We're going to hang out together. Somehow, my aura is going to, and it was awful. I mean, living with an active cocaine, crack addict is like living in hell. I never realized how bad it was. I mean, I'm such a trusting person. I never knew how someone could lie, how someone could steal from you, how someone could say they loved you and then turn around and do all these things. What I understood is, and for all you codependents who are involved with addicts, the addict is always going to choose their drug of choice over you. That's just how it is. And that's the very, very sad thing is no matter how much he said he loved me, he loved his drug more. And he would do more, including hurt me in a variety of different ways to get high. I at one point towards the end was suicidal. I would wake up every morning feeling like I couldn't go on. I didn't know how to get out of it. They talk about the codependent trap. I was truly, truly miserable. I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. And what happened was I went away on vacation. I had him cat sit for me. I came home, found out he had sold my china for some drugs. It was, I found out he had lied about a variety of things that he'd been working. And that was it. Like for me, that was the end of the line. I booted him out. And I just said, I needed to reach out for help again. The hard thing when you're in recovery for a long time is you think you should be somewhere. You should know better, all this shoulding business. So, the ego gets big and you figure, well, you can't ask for help because, people are going to think you're whatever. You have this reputation for being the queen of recovery. And, but, I couldn't. I was losing myself. I mean, my friends were just like, they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And that's what I did. I kind of humbled myself, and I went to see a counselor, and I got and I started working on that. But that was really a slow rise back into healing. You know, it took me a long time to understand and to forgive myself
That's huge.
for getting involved in that, and to forgive him because you know, he was only doing what was best for him. You know, it wasn't the right thing, but you know, we can't hold on to, like, addicts cannot afford to hold on to these resentments. You know, because those are the things that are, you know, going to get you relapsing. You know, so today I haven't been in a long-term relationship since then. You know, I really, for a year, I didn't date anybody. I really was working on myself. I had to take a long look at my relationship patterns and, you know, my drug of choice being emotionally unavailable men.
Mm.
Because I myself was emotionally unavailable. That was a huge awakening for me.
Mhm.
And to understand that when you're running after other people, I was afraid that, like, if I stood still that I would, like, kind of disappear.
Mhm.
Because we know that codependents and love addicts, their biggest fear is abandonment.
Yes.
So as long as I was chasing after someone, you know, I was busy doing something. But God forbid I should just try to be myself.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't know where that was going to go. So it was just easier to be what you wanted me to be. Like, codependents and love addicts, they're the chameleons.
Mhm. Yep.
I once made a joke about going to a costume party, and I says, I'm going as a codependent. I'll be whatever you want.
It's true. It's very true.
Got a lot of laughs out of that one, you know. So yeah, you know, I'm careful, and I still believe in love. I think it's going to happen, you know, when I least expect it. But I just, you know, today the big difference is that I don't want to hurt myself.
Mhm.
You know, I believe in self-care. I believe in just, you know, my good friends, safety. You know, this high risk business that I would put myself into was very dangerous. You know, today when I'm feeling triggered, I'll take my little girl's, you know, hand, and I'll just say, no, it's okay, you're safe, it's fine, you don't have to go there.
Mhm.
You know, it's really, really, you know, really, really important to do that. And then, you know, a couple of years ago, I just decided, I had worked for enough people and knew enough about recovery and studied enough of it that I designed my own program. And that's when I came up with the 7 steps, My Resilient Recovery, where I help, you know, I say women, but I help, you know, men as well. I won't turn down a man if he wants to join the program. It's not strictly about codependency, but of course, you know, relationship addiction is, for me, is the underlying piece of any addiction.
Mhm.
So that's why you have the codependent and the addict together. Like, I don't know if you know that, but codependency was discovered in the 50s when therapists were treating alcoholics, and their partners were, like, coming in, well, you know, can you fix this person? I can't fix them. And that's when, you know, that's when the whole thing started. So I'd like to talk more about, you know, enabling, because I think that's the biggest problem in terms of codependency, you know, especially with addicts. But I think I'll take a breath now and maybe.
Well, I was actually going to say that the enabling thing, because I think that that's one of the biggest issues is, you know, and for myself, this was a place where I didn't even realize, because there's so much commonalities when you start breaking down the story that people have gone through. And now, being a coach myself now for a while and coming up from the other side of it, and you know, just I can look back and say, hey, I was always the one, I was the oldest, I took care of my siblings, you know, I was always the one who had it all together, I was going to take care of everybody and make sure it was okay, and parents weren't fighting. My, you know, my younger siblings were okay. I was afraid to go away to college because I wanted to make sure I was there for my little sister. And then when I left, she, you know, she was suicidal, and so I felt responsible. So it's like all these things back and
Mhm.
I was always used to, when I started to finally have romantic relationships, you know, because also too, I mean, for me, losing my virginity was also like, let's get this out of the way, you know, when
Yeah.
I was young. And you know, when I finally had like started to have like real romantic relationships, it was like I was as loyal as a dog, you know. And I actually said that to my first long-term boyfriend. I said,
Yeah.
loyal as a dog, because you could do whatever and I would still come back, like, you know, like ready to come back to for whatever. And because I was going to fix it, I was going to fix everything. And so it was the same pattern over and over again of relationships, of once I felt that attraction, once I felt that connection to the person, I was going to hold on till my fingers bled, until it was killing me. And I think that, I never realized until after the fact, and I was doing my own healing, how much I was not allowing them to be them. I was not allowing me to be me, and I was not allowing
Yeah.
to be them. Like, they were not getting the lessons that they needed. My siblings, my parents, all of those people in my life, they never got what they needed because I was always there to try to fix and push and support and do all these things. So I had to pull back and say, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
40, and it's okay to be selfish. And it, because that was like a scary word. Like, I'm going to be selfish if I take care of myself and I'm not worried about everybody else. It was like such a scary thing. But part of recovery is learning how to be selfish, learning that self-care, learning that we're responsible for ourselves and other people are responsible for themselves.
Yeah. And, when it comes to enabling, it's good to help other people, right? But when you go too far, and it's, enabling is really doing for others what they can actually do for themselves.
Yeah.
So like you said, you're robbing, I was robbing that guy of, of him hitting his bottom, okay, in order to get help. Like, of course, a mother doesn't want to change the locks on their house when their son comes in and robs, because they might have to sleep in the street. Or, the wife that covers for the husband when he's hungover because he might lose his job. But, you are not doing them any service by doing that, because they need to be able to feel the consequences of their actions. That's the big thing, is that the codependent doesn't allow them to deal with the consequences of their actions. And another thing that's really important is that I never understood that people pleasers are really not very nice people. They think they're doing nice things, but when you don't do what they tell them to do,
They're not happy.
They get all pissed off and resentful. So it's not only about putting other people's needs before yours, it's about control.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Codependents have the need to control. Mm-hmm. Because if you grow up in a household, let's say, if you look at the history, you grow up in a household with alcoholics, because many codependents are alcoholics, or they grow up in those kind of households with chaos, so the need to be able to be controlled is a survival technique.
Yeah.
And it's great when you're younger, but when you carry that into your future relationships, well, we know what happens.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's so great is that as codependents, we're survivors. We've learned how to survive, and that was our coping mechanism. I loved how you said before, you take that little girl by the hand, that inner child work. I think about this all the time. We are all just grown up kids. And so,
yeah.
myself sometimes, I'm like, oh, I'm an adult. I'm now a 41-year-old, child, but,
Yep.
there's still that little piece of you, that little scared, innocent person that was there, that didn't know any better and that did the best they could. And being able to learn and grow from what those lessons were is what helps us be healthy adults. We can't, after a certain point, we have to stop blaming the world for where we're at. Mm-hmm. Saying, hey, what can I do to now take from the experiences, learn from them, and so that I don't have to keep repeating them? Because now, it's out of that victim mentality. It's not, yeah, oh, my parents did this, these people did that. So, well, you're 55 years old. How
exactly, get over it.
Exactly. How long are you blaming everybody for? Like, when you start taking responsibility for yourself? And I think that's a big thing that people's, it's self-care, looking within, all of that stuff is really scary, yeah, for codependence.
Oh, for sure. But it's, it's to learn how to support in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. And that's about, I have to learn how to set boundaries. Boundaries is the big word in addiction. Having boundaries and learning how to say no, mm-hmm, learning what's yours and what belongs to somebody else, mm-hmm, and not feeling bad about it, because it's protecting you and the other person as well. Like, know your limits. I mean, we talk about bottom lines. I don't know, maybe you talked about it as well. It's like, what is it, absolutely that you're not going to tolerate? And then everything else is kind of negotiable. So if you don't know your limits, then you don't know where you stand. So, that's for me a very important part of healing from, codependency and love addiction, is you got to know, you have to set those boundaries. Because if you're all over the place, you're not really going to know where you stand.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so important about not jumping into another relationship is because we don't know who we are. So how can we know what we want from another person because we don't know what we want from ourselves? So, and that's why it's so important. Whenever people say, "No, I think I'm good. I think I'm healed enough. I can start dating." And I'm like, "Oh no, please don't." This is what the same cycle is going to be over and over again because until we know, and I say all the time, people say they're looking for their other half, and I'm like, no, you're looking for your other whole. It's not. You're not looking for a part
Yeah, yeah.
part of a person. You want another whole person who knows what their needs are, who knows what their wants are, and that way you can come together and say, hey, do we work well together as two whole people? And then you still might not, and that's okay too. Just because someone, you have great sex or you had a great conversation doesn't mean that that's your like new life partner, that's your forever person. That means that's what it was. When you really feel comfortable in yourself, when you meet another person who's comfortable and you're both able to look at each other and say, hey, you're awesome, I'm awesome, but we're just not awesome together. And that might still hurt, but we're comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm going to end this so that you can find your awesome partner and I'm going to find my awesome partner. And then we're going to move on and keep going. The codependence, we meet that person, they have the great sex, they have the great conversation, whatever. And then, they see that things aren't working, but they're going to do everything in their power to make it work. And like you said,
Yes.
force it. Like, no, that's not. You got to learn when to let it go. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's a good point. Is that the codependent will be out swimming, in the ocean and they're convinced that they see land. It doesn't matter how far they're swimming, they'll be drowning that, but the land is there. I'm going to find that. I mean, my mother stayed married to my dad. I think there was some issues, early on, and I remember her saying this, I will never divorce your father because I come from a divorced background.
Mhm.
So, I saw that sort of codependent martyr victim thing happening like right before my very eyes. So we learn from what we see. So, if you see that type of behavior in your family, if you see people use manipulation or passive aggressivity or any kind of behavior, that's kind of what you're either gonna totally reject it or you're going to follow through with that.
Yeah. And it's hard. I see some of the people that are coming in, and I know some of them personally, and I know that it's really hard when you're watching the addict drowning as the codependent and then not being able to know the right thing to do. And what happens is a lot, to keep reaching out and to keep doing because you think you're helping, but you're making it worse while you're losing yourself in the process. And I think that that's one of those things. And I don't know what kind of, if you have like a tip maybe for, other than just feeling the pain and doing it anyway, what watching this person that you love going through this, you've been on both sides of it now. Is there anything that you can give as an insight, maybe being the addicted person and what you were going through?
Okay, so I'm just want to clarify the question. So you want to a tip on how a partner of an addict, how they should help their addicted partner? Is that it? In a healthy way?
But I think I'm more asking, as the addict, what was it like for you on the other side? Like, when you were, people might have been trying to help you and doing things for you when you were having your addiction issues. Like, what was that like for you with other people trying to help or overly help? How did you feel about that?
The only person that actually really knew about it, because I hid it really well, was my sister. And what she said to me when I got first love, she said, if you don't get help, I will not be able to be friends with you. Because I was in denial. I completely did not know what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't, I had a very high bottom, like we say. I didn't lose, a house or a job or whatever. For me, I lost my self-respect, my sense of spirituality, all the dreams that I had, that's what I lost. And that was enough for me. So my sister, on the other hand, much different, a mess, an alcoholic, everything. She would be your typical, people bugging her and sending her to rehab and threatening and whatnot, and those are sort of more typical cases. I was kind of lucky, I guess, in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not lucky. I just was good. I hit it I hid it better. I didn't suffer any less. I just, when I told my parents I was getting sober, they didn't even understand what I was talking about.
Yeah. And that's it. It's the hiding of it. So what was your mindset? Like when you were dealing with your ex-boyfriend who was a drug addict, what what was like the final straw, and how did you hold on and say, I am not letting him back in no matter what? Because what happens a lot of times is, with our
Oh yeah.
there's that back and forth. Like they're going to get sober. Oh, they're not. Oh, they're going to get, there's that back and forth, that 9, 10, 14 times. Like, you're codependent when you broke it up with the same person 14 times, like,
Yeah. Exactly.
so what was your mindset? How did you get yourself through that?
I think, like I said to you, when I came back from that trip, and first of all, while I was on the trip, I got a call from my credit card company asking me if I had you. I said, oh my God, like it was a nightmare, like recurring. I said, don't tell me this is happening again. I trusted him. He had been to rehab. He was fine. I figured he would be okay. And then when he'd, sold the dishes, I think that was it. I said, you know what, this is never going to change.
Mm-hmm.
He's stolen from me. I mean, at the lowest of the low, I made police reports. I said, I will not be able to go further in this way. It's just, it's just not going to happen. I have to completely get him out of my life. I have to do it. When people become your substance, it's very difficult. Alcohol, drugs, you can put that away. You never have to look at them again. It's easy. But with people, it's not so easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was really, hooked into me, into my blood. And I was addicted to that guy. Truly, truly addicted. There was something about him. Like, I know that feeling. And when I meet people, men, when I feel that addictive feeling, it's a very different feeling than when you actually like somebody. And it's, and, I hit a bottom, and that was it. I said, I can't go on any further. My life is, going, down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
Time to grow up.
What did you do about loneliness? Like, were you afraid of being alone, or were you afraid of abandonment, or any of those kinds of typical codependent issues?
I think at that point I was just relieved.
Mm-hmm.
I think I needed to feel safe,
mm-hmm.
because the overriding feeling I had when I was with him was not feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
I felt threatened all the time. Like I don't know if you've ever felt that feeling, but I didn't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hiding a lot. Again, there was a lot of secrecy, and it's shame.
Mm-hmm.
And shame needs the dark to thrive. So there was so much shame that I had been feeling, because that relationship, even the drugs and alcohol, yes, going against my values, but this was even worse, because I was already sober, and here I was, being this, like I said, misrecovery, and here I was in this relationship. I had felt so much shame
mm-hmm.
around that with him out of my life, like I could sleep at night. I felt, well, although I had a little post-traumatic stress, I mean, I used to leave my purse in the front of my vestibule, after him, I just used to stick it in a drawer in my bedroom. I mean, I still do that.
Did you?
So
Did you get? Well, I had somebody ask, did you get like a therapist, or how did you heal from some of those traumas?
I went to see I went to a place where they have victims of crime.
Mm.
If you've been had some type of crime committed against you, there are services here that you can go to, for free. So I went there. I gave them my case, and they referred me to a woman's sort of shelter type place. Mm. Where, I mean, I didn't go to the shelter, but they had counseling services, and I went to see a counselor there. She was like a quarter of my age. It was unbelievable. She was so young, but she was so perfect. Mm. She was so non-judgmental, and she could see that what I had been through, and she just, really helped me. First it was about sort of the legal stuff. Did I want to press charges? Would you be, ready to see him in court? Do you want to go through that? She was really helping me kind of weigh the options of what I could do. In the end, I just decided it wasn't worth it. I really just wanted to get my own integrity back. It wasn't like $1 million or anything, and not that he even had it. So she helped me sort of come to those decisions and just helped me started, feeling good about myself. She helped me understand about abusive relationships, the cycle of abuse, which I didn't really understand before. So there was a bit of education plus, plus the counseling.
So, and anyone who's in the process of leaving, I mean, that was a domestic violence shelter in my area was key because I did not know what I had to do. And I didn't want to reach out to my friends, the same kind of thing. I didn't know what to do. So I called a local domestic, and I had, a background in psychology and crisis counseling and all these things. And I was like, I definitely cannot handle this one. This is something that I can now know I'm powerless against this. I have no idea what to do. So I reached out to them, and they had a court advocate with me. And Canada might be a little bit different from the States, but like they had the court advocate that's went with me to court. And actually it was interesting because she was the first person that when I told her that I had been strangled, she had this horrified look on her face. And I was like, and I just kind of said it. And I was like, should I add this to the order of protection? And she had this look on her face, and she was like, do you know how much scarier it is to me that you were strangled? And I was like, well, I didn't have any bruises. I wasn't punched, whatever. She's like, no, that he could have killed you in a few minutes, a few seconds. And it was like this kind of aha, have someone who's a professional. And so she helped me write it out because I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't at all. So no matter what country and wherever you are, looking for that local domestic violence shelter to help you, even if you're like, he's not really abusing me, maybe there's not real abuse, because for me there was no bruising, broken bones, things like that. But if you are feeling scared for your safety, and like you said, you were afraid, you were constantly fearful, if you just have that feeling, you don't have to explain why you feel it. Just domestic violence shelter, talk to them and see what they say, and they might give you some light bulb moments of things that like maybe you thought it was abuse but you were not sure, you weren't, maybe it is, and definitely reach out there. So somebody was asking, do you feel that you are emotionally available now? Do you think you've been able to fully get to the other side of the emotional ability part?
I think I'm more emotionally available than I was. I'm still, for me, I have to go, much slower at, where I'm at in my life, age and stage. I'm dealing with aging parents. I don't have as much time as I used to. I'm sort of emotionally involved with that as well. And I just, I want to really take it slower. I mean, for sure that had a huge effect on me. I mean, I'm not going to jump anything. And, I really have to make sure that person is a solid, I obviously have some trust issues, which is going to take some time to there's no hurry. There's really, really no hurry. And if it doesn't happen, I'm okay with that also, I have good friends. I don't want for, things to do. I used to think that men, that I had to have a man because it was the most important thing in the world. And if I didn't have one, yeah, sure, I get lonely. Everyone gets lonely. Loneliness is part of the human condition. It's not the end of the world. You won't die from it.
Yep. And
so I've kind of trained
reconnecting with those female friends. And I think that's where I was at actually when I ended up meeting my husband, is where I said, I could be alone forever. Like, I'm totally cool with this. I love the freedom. I love not having to have conversations about what I'm doing, who I'm seeing, all those things. So free, and had such great connections with my female friends. And that's one of the things I recommend to my clients: reconnect with those female friends, because I had all this male attention, and I was like, oh, I have better friends with guys. Guys are, I need to be friends with guys. And I realized, no, I did not need to be friends with guys. I needed to reconnect with my female friends.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, all of my, so many of my close relationships are my friendships with my female friends. And then, of course, I have my husband, who's my best friend, but my other close relationships are all female. And I didn't have that most of my life. It was always, more men centered.
Yeah, well, I always had good female friends, so I've sort of gone back to that. And the old days, I would, as soon as a guy would call, I'd run and dump people because, if the guy's calling, you gotta run to them.
Hmm.
How long that's gonna last.
Hmm.
So I don't do that anymore. I mean, I'm more true to myself. And but I'm trying to manifest. I'm into manifesting things in my life, and it seems to work. So I'm creating that vision, for my partner, which I think is an important thing for people to do. That's actually a lot of what I do in my program. Is a couple of the steps are really about creating a vision.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Because addicts, do not, it's hard to get sober unless you have a compelling reason to,
Hmm.
and you, like I said earlier, it's about really creating that best life. And the best way to do that is to have, that vision of what you want. So you can create it for anything. So for me now, it's really, a little bit about, who's that guy?
Hmm. Yep. And enjoying the process as you figure that out, because I think that's there's no sitting around and waiting. There's not like, oh, that's my Prince Charming's gonna come to me. It's like
Oh God, no, he ain't coming.
exactly, like I am living my best life, and if someone adds to that life, that's great, and if they don't, that's great too. And I think that's where people get so scared, like you were saying, like it's not scary to be alone. Two different people can have the same, completely different ideas of what alone is. I went to the store today, and this is kind of a funny side note. I went to the store today without my kids, and
Oh, how
oh
fun.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm walking around the aisle, like pushing my cart. So, just picture me, and I'm in BJ's, which is this giant, like big box store. So I'm in these like giant, like this, and walking around and just kind of like looking around at things. And this woman comes by and she's like, she asked me to move, and I was like, oh, sure, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm here without my kids. And she's like, oh, I understand what that's like. And this woman from the other side of the store, she says, oh, you're without your kids too? And it was like this moment where we were all like, had this moment, moms, that we were on vacation being at the store. It was so funny. So,
Well, it's good to be alone. Listen, I love being alone. I probably spend too much time alone though, because you know what? It is easier. Like I don't want to go too far to that side where it's easy to be alone and I don't have to have any conflict or any like I don't want to get that far. Like I do realize that it's so easy, especially as you get older, to slip into that and to not bother with it. And so like, I'm still that romantic who believes that, that's it's somewhere there out for me and that I deserve something healthy and good.
yeah, it's all about that balance.
Yeah. But I won't settle. Like I think I'd settled a lot, as a young girl, as a teenager, as an active addict, I disrespected myself, and I settled for a lot of situations that were not nice and they were hurtful. So, I just, we deserve much better than we give ourselves.
Yes. Yes. That's true. So what are some things that is there like a final, if you could leave with just like, a few tips, or, you want to have your final say of what you really want people to take away from this. What are some things that you could share for them to be able to grow from, and to learn about themselves?
Well, I think a really important thing is to understand what you can and cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
This is the underlying thing of codependency anyways. Even non-codependence is that, most of what happens in our lives and with other people, we have no control over it.
Mm-hmm.
And people spend hours and years, expending useless energy when you need to let go and let people and let things unfold. Like I wrote, in the introduction there that 90% of it is it's 10% what's going on and it's 90% your reaction to it. For example, a dog could walk into a room, you get up on the table because you're terrified of it, and I go and pet the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Same dog,
Yep.
nothing, but it's just, how we react to that. So it's accepting, like the Serenity Prayer says, things you cannot change, things you can, and the wisdom to know the
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Yeah.
So when you're getting all upset about something, turn it around, pause a bit. How much can I control this?
Mm-hmm.
How much of it is about me? How can I change my attitude? That's a big thing for me. That's a big thing. Another big thing is getting help. You know, my story is about initially asking for help, feeling bad about not asking, suffering a little bit more, and then eventually having to ask for help. Like, it is not a sign of weakness; it is a sign of strength.
Yeah.
We need to help each other, and people grow when they're in helping situations. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Get a sponsor, a coach, or a therapist, whatever it is that you need at that time. Get a lawyer, get a whatever. I mean, whatever you need, ask for that help.
Mm-hmm.
And and one of the most important things, and this is a part of my program, is find yourself a purpose in your life.
Yeah.
I don't think people can live, fulfilled completely unless they figure out why they're on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And once you figure that out, everything kind of aligns with that. Mm-hmm. I know people struggle with that and they may go, oh, what's she talking about? It's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
It's worth pursuing. Why do we get sober? We get sober because we want to live a better life. And, recovering people have a sort of an extra added chance, of going far down, and then being able to build up. Most people just kind of walk through life like, robots. They never get the chance to really go that deep. So, mm-hmm. Why not make something really good and healthy for yourself?
Yeah. And that's why I called it the awakening, is that, you go through all this shit and then you come out and you're like, whoo, what is going on? This is the world. This is what I've been missing out on. And I think we do such a disservice to the world to not let our light shine for others.
100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's selfish. When you have gifts and you don't share them with the world.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was great. Like, I could talk to you all day, and I feel like, because there's so much great information. Your story is so inspiring, and I know that it's going to inspire so many other people. And it is to get that team together. Get you've met two coaches right here. You've got there's so many different programs out there. It is just really taking responsibility for yourself and putting your foot down and saying, I am not doing this anymore. I am going to now make it a conscious effort to know that it's going to be uncomfortable because I'm changing, but do it anyway. And you don't have to do it by yourself. That's what's so great, is that you have people that are happy and thrilled that, and it's our life purpose to now give back and help you.
That's it. We're there to help you.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. If you're not changing, you're not growing, and I mean, you can't be doing that, 24/7, but, in order to grow, you have to get a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and saying hello. And if we didn't get to answer questions during the interview, Ivy and I will go back and we will answer any questions that we have. We also, if you would like to follow Ivy, definitely, she's got her social media accessible in there. And I think there was one that I wanted to add that you had sent me that I didn't. So we'll do that afterwards. Make sure that you can follow her, like her.
Email, yeah. I just wanted to mention one thing, that if you go on my website, if you want to see how resilient you are in your recovery, I have a quiz there that you can take.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so check out her stuff and go, do the test and see where you are in your resiliency, and, follow her because she's doing some really great things. So thank you all so much, and we will see you on the other side. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Stephanie. Take care. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Take care. Good night. Bye-bye.